1941, 73-year-old Philip Peters was supposed to join his friends for dinner, but he never showed up. His neighbors knew Phil was living alone at the time because his wife had fallen and was in the hospital. They were worried and they thought, let's call the police. When the police arrived at his house, they knocked on the door, no answer. They tried the door handle, it was locked, and they had to get another neighbor who had a key to open the door. When they stepped inside, there was blood everywhere. And in the middle of the kitchen is Phil Peters. He has been bludgeoned to death. And they realized how strange the scene was. Nothing in the house was vandalized. Nothing in the house was stolen. And Phil himself didn't have any enemies. There was no sign of forced entry. Whoever was in there with Phil must have known Phil. What would motivate some person in Phil's inner circle to commit such a heinous crime? There was virtually no evidence, with the exception of the murder weapon, this big piece of metal called a stove shaker. But the person who had used it had taken the time to wipe it off. For months, detectives agonized over this case, but they got nowhere. 9 months later, a housekeeper was hired by Phil's widow. She's alone in the Peters residence, and she hears the tapping, and it's coming from the kitchen. On the other side of the kitchen was a door. She said it was slowly opening, and out from behind comes this white hand that reaches for the side of the door and begins to pull it open, and she screams, and the hand retracts back, and then she hears it storm up the stairs and run around before going silent again. The police go to the house, and they're looking all through the house, and there's nothing. The housekeeper didn't go back, and Miss Peters was moved back to the hospital. At this point, the police decide, we're going to permanently stake out this house. 2 detectives go, and for a couple of days, they're not seeing anything, and they decide to just go inside and have a look around. And as they're standing on the first floor, they hear a doorknob turning upstairs. And one of the detectives goes into the bedroom and opens up a closet, and past all the clothes, he sees a foot dart into a little space, and he's yelling for his partner to come over, and they both grab this person, and they yank this person out. He was super tall, but rail thin, and his skin was so dirty it appeared gray. His name was Theodore Conies, and he had been living in this house for a year. Before Conies moved in, he had fallen on hard times. As it started to get colder in September of 1941, he decided he would approach his friend Phil Peters. But when he got to Phil's house, Phil wasn't there, and Conies saw an opportunity and he broke in. He noticed when he was looking through the house that in the back of one of these closets was a panel that led to this tiny little attic space that wasn't being used for anything because it was impossibly small. He decided that this is where he's going to live for the winter. And when Phil came home that night, he didn't notice anything. And for the next several weeks, every time Phil would leave, Conies would sneak out, go downstairs, get a bite to eat, and then go back up to his little space. About a month later, Conies leaves his little spot. He gets to the kitchen. When he shuts the fridge, he looks over, and there's Phil standing there looking at him. In a panic, Conies grabs the stove shaker and beats Phil to death. He wipes off the murder weapon. He goes right back up to where he lives. Conies was quickly found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. After hearing his sentence, he says, "Now I feel safe. I'll have a better home than I've had in years."